Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. In today's video, we are back on board with ENVOY. I don't know what it is. It just seems like whenever we're on board with ENVOY, he plays so fast. And of course, that's the type of player he is, right? But he plays so fast. He gets so many kills. He's always in the action. So I feel like in a way, it's one of the most fun point of views to watch from just because of the fact he plays so fast. There are times where I like to switch it up and go with formal or RCDs and kind of get that AR role so that we can focus more a little bit on rotations and stuff like that. But he had another big game here. They're playing Seattle, and I think this is one of the first scrims with Enable back in the Seattle lineup. So I wanted to make sure that I was covering that as well so you guys could see how everything is playing out from that perspective. Somebody did say that they were playing. I went and I looked at Octane, and he hasn't been live for like 4 or 5 days. So I'm not sure who exactly was scrimming from Seattle, but maybe that's something I can check out in the future if that's something you guys want to watch. But with this one, as we go ahead and talk about the actual strategy ahead, we can see that P2 is going to pop here in just a couple seconds. And unfortunately for Chicago, they did have the original spawn that you want to have, but they were forced out. Now, the other side of that, the flip side of that would be that even though they ended up giving up spawns for P2, they were able to get 37 seconds off of P1. So as long as they don't give up all 60 seconds here, then they're not going to be in that big of trouble. Even if they do give up all 60 seconds, they'll probably have spawns for P3. They'll be able to lock down the choke points leading out of P2, and then they'll be able to get a bunch of time inside of P3. We'll see how this ends up playing out, but so far, it's a really nice job from Seattle of being able to not only flip spawns, but once they flip spawns, they're able to lock down that time. They're able to cut off all of these choke points. So really nice job out of them. That's not something that you've saw too much in the past from them, right? But this is a phenomenal job. They've essentially locked all 60 seconds. Now, as we're rotating here to P3, let me go ahead, let me pause this, let me draw on screen, minimap right above my face. So I had a couple comments that people thought it might be more beneficial to have a bigger map and a smaller me. I know, hurts my feelings, but no, I'm just kidding. What are you going to do? But as we are currently inside of P2, so Seattle has here, and if you're Chicago, you want to make sure you get this cut out of mid cave. You want to make sure you get this cut leading from cave east, and then also this cut coming from Seattle spawn, right? Because if Seattle's spawning here and they're inside of P2, then these are the 3 main routes that they can try to escape. So if you're Chicago, you can go ahead, you can get time inside of P3, you can cut off those 3 lanes and then progress from there. The other thing that teams have started to do, and I guess this has been going on for a little while now, is that you have these 2 routes kind of in mid right here, but oftentimes people will also send somebody on a long flank over there towards cave west, and the whole point of that is just to try to set up spawns for P4. And not only is it beneficial for P4, but it's also beneficial for actually holding down P3, because you have that godheady on the outside part of P3, and then there's really only one choke that you can come from, right? Again, while this is playing, I'm still going to draw on the minimap, but if you're coming from the P2 or the cave east side of the map, you really do have to funnel through one of these 2 main points. Whereas if you're coming from cave west side of the map or to the left of P3, you can go through silo, you can go through this broken building, you can go godheady, you can go underneath, and you can go on top, right? So not only silo underneath, but also silo on top. So there's a ton of different ways that you can go, which is why most teams prefer to enter P3 from the left, especially if you can get your main AR on that godheady that's outside over to the right. But with this, Chicago's doing a pretty nice job, right? The majority of this time they've been in control of P3. We'll see what happens with the battle here for P4. I'm interested to see if they're still going to end up sending. I wish that we had a minimap in the bottom left-hand corner, some sort of codcaster mode that I could go ahead and I could actually see what's going on, because I want to see the person that's inside. Let me pause this again real quick. Whoops. My bad, still have my pen on. But let me go ahead and pause this again real quick, because I really want to see right now if whoever was inside of P3 for Chicago, if they're still sending somebody to push through, going cave east and then going mid-cut right here and trying to get a pinch. A lot of times teams are doing that because if you're Chicago and you have this spawn and you can get control of Hill and have these locked down, then you know that Seattle's going to be spawning over here towards Cave East. So if they're pushing up and you're trying to kill them from this side and you have somebody, whoever was on P3, pinching them from the right, then all of a sudden you don't have that much to worry about, right? That person can pinch from behind. He can get 2 or 3 on the pinch, and then now you have all the time inside of P4 as well. It looks like that person is still back there, right? I'm looking at the mini map in the top left-hand corner of ENVOY's screen, and there's still somebody behind. Actually, he might spawn out right here. That's kind of what I figured. Now, the problem with pinching is that if you all go down, you're going to spawn out. You're not going to be able to get inside of P4. You're going to give up basically all of that time. And while that's an issue, it's in a way beneficial because the real money hill, if you're talking about the most important hills on this particular map, is P5. If you lock down P5, it's super easy to hold. There's only 1 or 2 choke points where the enemy team can really get through. So we'll see what happens here as this ends up playing out. But again, minimap that's right underneath my face, if you have control of P5, you really only have to worry about 2 places, right? You only have to worry about this flank coming from Cliff's Edge or from this mid cut. Most of the time, one person can watch this entire P2 top side here of Cave East if they're sitting like sandbags or this back flank route over here. So if you have somebody in that location, it really only takes one person to lock down the cave. The rest, everybody else, so one person in cave, one person watching maybe the Cliff's Edge flank, and then 2 people watching mid-map. But as we're watching this, it does look like Chicago has done a pretty decent job of getting the first half of the hill. They are getting pushed out a little bit. And if you're Chicago, this isn't exactly perfect, right? Because now is the perfect setup that you want to have. You want to have somebody pushed out over past the hard point a little bit. If your furthest pushed out person is inside the hill, then you're essentially giving up that rush route from P5. So not particularly the best setup that we've seen on P5, but still they did a pretty nice job, right? Because at the end of the first set of rotations, they have about a 20-point lead. And not only do they have a 20-point lead, but they also have map position for P2. The other thing that I'll say is that it's kind of impressive that Seattle... now my last power rankings that I did, I had Seattle pretty high, like 7, 8, somewhere in there, I'm pretty sure, because they've been playing pretty well in their most recent events, and they're playing pretty well right now, to be honest. This is one of Chicago's best maps when it comes to Hardpoint. They always play really well here. ENVOY usually goes off on this map because there's so many close interactions in these areas, like you see him running in right now. So it's if you're a Seattle fan, I mean, this looks pretty good, right? They're within striking distance. The map's tied, even though they don't have spawns for P2, but they're still set up fairly well. We'll see what happens here moving forward. But with that and the addition of General now here for the last couple of weeks, I do want to make sure that we are covering team comms. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn up their audio. I'm still going to pause and point out the most important things and stop the footage and stuff like that. But I do want you guys to be able to listen in. So with that, let's go ahead. Let's listen into the team comms and let's see how this map ends up playing out.
Oh my god.
Another one?
Yeah.
Underpass, yeah. On time, Matt.
This is both set of rotations on P2 that Chicago had these spawns to start, and they ended up giving it up both times. So really nice job here from Seattle of not being blown out on these P2 hard points when they didn't have spawns.
Another one old. I have initial.
Wow. Her name was one second.
Yeah, watch mid, high.
Yeah, one more cave, Jared.
Three going back yellow. Three going back yellow. They're gonna be all over map.
Yeah, someone grab that. Oh. I got out of time, guys.
I can get time.
P5 too. And top stone, fuck. Top stone, top broken.
So if you were Chicago, that might have happened a little bit too quickly, right? They were only really able to hold down P3 for about 20 seconds before they got pushed out. So that's definitely not the best. That's not what you want to have happen if you have control of P3. And essentially all that's happening is that Seattle's being able to slay out of P2. They're not getting caught in those choke points, and that's normally what happens when you have really good SMGs up in those areas. Let's go ahead. Let's get back in.
Yeah, we're just playing for the flip. Play for the flip, I guess.
Brian's like yellow somewhere.
Trying to come help you, Yellow.
Alright, I'm playing this slow.
Someone's gonna go P2.
He's dead time.
I'm waiting for you guys.
Oh.
Alright, Matt, watch over me.
Got Brian.
I'm close.
We're gonna spawn P2.
That's done.
We didn't flip yet. We did not
Yeah,
flip.
I'm just holding P2. I'm holding him P2.
Now, absolute worst case scenario right here would be that Seattle ends up tying on this current hill, and then they end up getting spawns for P5 also. So this time right here from ENVOY is great, but you don't want to sacrifice necessarily all of this time for P5 spawns, which kind of looks like what's happening, right? As ENVOY comes up off of spawns right there, he spawns outside of Cave West, which means that they're probably going to be able to get the last 20 seconds, that's right here, but they're not in position to get P5, whereas if they were in position to get P5 and they're already at 200 points, you could essentially end the map on P5. That's obviously not going to happen, but we'll see what happens as this plays out.
One's top beds. Beds already. Beds. Nice. Another one there. Another one there.
Yeah, he's at the generator.
Push up front.
Yeah,
I spawned cave with you.
And just like that, they were able to flip.
Yellow.
One still front. Yeah, close. Got him. On the other side.
Man, I wish that I could just be in Codcaster mode for these because I want to watch the arrows. I want to see what's happening the entire time. It's a little bit tough to be able to analyze stuff like this if you're not in Codcaster because you can't quite see all of the arrows, but they're still getting those back spawns. Looks like Formal's doing a really nice job of holding down in top broken, so they're not getting time, but they're not giving up spawns and they're not giving up that time either.
No, I'm trying to go.
Grab time.
I got it.
Go.
I stunned them. Yeah, I stunned them. I'm helping this for a
Front.
second.
I got through front.
Yeah, I'm
You
leaving.
go.
Damon weak.
All right, I do want to pause this real quick.
I'm snipers right now,
Let
guys.
me pause this real quick. So this is something that I really like seeing from squads like this. You'll see that ENVOY was in P5 and he went ahead and he ran out through this bottom broken, and now he's pushed through silo and he's in top snipers. So what's the point of doing this? So the reason why is that if you're spawning here and it's a battle for P1 that's eventually going to come, this is like 50-50, right? They'll be spawning here, you'll be spawning there. You'll probably be pushed up a little bit if you're Chicago, so you'll probably be a little bit more mid-map, but this is just 50-50 battle inside of P1. So the point of ENVOY pushing up is that he knows that his team is spawning back here. So if he positioned himself in this part of the map, now he's blocking that spawn from Seattle. So if he's there, where do they have to spawn? They have to spawn inside P4 at Cave West, which means they only have these two little choke points to run through to get back to P1. So this is a way that you can take advantage of P1 and you can win off of this hill. Now, the downside of this hill is that if he stays alive and Seattle's able to push through and Seattle's over to take this spawn, so able to kill everybody, get Formal out of top broken. Now, that's probably not going to happen because he has a power position back there. But if they're able to push that out, now when Chicago comes off spawn, the only person that would be left would be ENVOY and top snipers. So now Chicago would have these spawns. So that's kind of what's happening right now. That's why you saw ENVOY push out so much, even though you want to have those back spawns for P2. But he's setting up a pinch and he's really trying to control spawns. I wish I could see the arrows. And it does look like they got pushed out of the back.
Another one back yellow.
Literally the exact thing that I said you don't want to have happen is what is happening. So Formal was the last one alive back there. He ended up going down, which means the rest of Chicago spawned out over towards P1, which is where ENVOY was. So a little bit unfortunate. That's just a play where everything has to go your way in order for it to work out properly, but that's what they were trying to do.
Dead. Yeah, behind me. Top yellow. It's going to be top yellow. Top yellow.
Staying down. Watch
Yo,
it.
flank yellow. Absolute.
One on me too.
Great kills there from ENVOY to end up closing the map out. So this one overall, I think Chicago obviously had the advantage in the slaying department. Enable, this is his first day back, so that's probably a little bit to be expected. Octane, of course, frying here for the play of the game. That's just what he does. But if you're Chicago, it was okay, right? It wasn't great. They did end up giving up some hills, like especially P2. They had P2. They ended up giving it up. If we're taking a look at the scoreboard overall, ENVOY 34 and 31. Great marks out of him. Jordan 22 and 28. This isn't terrible, right? If you're the person that's communicating a lot and directing your team, then that's not all that bad. If Jordan could get in like the 32 and 28 range, then now we'd really be cooking with fire, right? If he could start going positive. He seems to be like -6, -8 every game. And again, it's not the end of the world because he brings so much else to the table. If we're looking down below, Enable went 25 and 31, so -6. Overall, the slaying was actually pretty close. I think the top 2 fraggers were on Chicago's squad, but Karma was pretty close. Apathy was pretty close. So overall, decently good job out of them. So with that, guys, if you're new around here, you like this sort of content, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. I put out brand new videos like this every single day. If you have any comments on this map or anything else that you want to see, make sure you leave a comment. I love going through and looking at the interactions. Leave a like before you head on your way. It really helps out the channel. And with that, guys, thank you so much for all the support recently. I super appreciate it. I will catch you in tomorrow's upload.